The hukum is permissibility. Why? Because that which is taba'an, it follows on. Okay, music by itself is haram to sell. However, if it follows on from another thing, then it becomes halal. Why? Because the object of the mobile phone is just the mobile phone itself. However, the music is something that just follows on from it, is something that's attached to it that you cannot separate from it, and so therefore the haram becomes halal in this issue. Also, for example, selling upon the sale of your brother. So when your brother has sold something, then you cannot come and try and sell on top of that again. Right? If your brother has, for example, already bought this car, you can't just come and say, I'll pay you 1,000 pounds more, O merchant, sell it to me instead of to him. The next point is that Rasulullah, another type of example that Rasulullah has prohibited is 2 contracts in 1 contract. To make 2 things obligatory, 2 contracts obligatory in one. As I said, for example, I will sell you the car with the condition that you sell your car to XYZ. Also, selling a debt for a debt. Selling a debt for a debt is an important thing that most people unfortunately fall in nowadays. And selling a debt for a debt, an example of this that I want to give is, for example, let's say a brother is leaving town. He's leaving town, and unfortunately, I'll tell you what, the reason why I put this here is because even students of knowledge fall into it. And in Medina, when we were finishing off from our studies over there, and people are selling off their stuff, and they were selling off their cars and etc., the household goods, and they were going to come back to their homeland, they were falling into this. How? An example of this is, for example, a brother would come to us and say, Abu Yusuf, I want to sell my car. Do you want to buy my car? I'd say, yes, okay, I'll buy your car. But he'll say, okay, but I'm leaving next week. Right? I'm leaving next week, so I'll give you the car then. And I said, okay, and I'll give you the money then too. Right? Here is the contract of debt for debt. How? Well, because I owe him money and he owes me the car. Right? So I owe him money, so that's a debt that I owe him. And he owes me the car, and that's a debt that he owes me. So that's a debt for a debt. And that's haram. What would be halal? What would be halal? How would we make, whenever we have a haram thing, let's try and figure out how we could make it halal. How we could make it halal is if, for example, I give him the money now and said, oh, so-and-so, take the money now. And so the contract would have been done now. And so the only thing would be that he owes me the car, and he would make the condition, say, I made the condition in the contract that I use it for 1 week. It's very easy. But if he makes a condition that I use it until I leave, that we cannot accept. Why? Because we don't know exactly what the set amount of time you're leaving. If we know exactly that his ticket is for 1 week, that's fine, if the set amount is set. However, if there's not a set amount, he just says, okay, whenever I leave, I'll give you the car, then that is not permitted. So this is how we make, for example, that haram contract, which was selling a debt for a debt, halal. Another way we can look at contracts is, for example, by way of the type of commodity being sold. I'm sorry, I wrote there by way of the commodity being sold, of the type of commodity being sold. So, for example, this is another way of looking at contracts. I can sell money for money. I can sell my pounds for dollars. Or, for example, in the first example that I gave in the first session, I can sell a £1 note for a £2 for 10 pounds in 2 £5 notes. That is a business transaction, as we said. Remember, because it is exchange of commodity for commodity with consent, mutual consent. And here it was a mutual consent, so therefore that is considered a business transaction. So I can sell money for money. That is one type. Second type is money from one party and a transferable commodity from another. What do we mean by transferable commodity? That in Arabic means manqul. Manqul means everything which is not iqar. What does iqar mean? Iqar means land and buildings. So everything that is not land and buildings, that is sellable, that is halal and sellable, is called manqul. It is called a transferable commodity, such as cars, such as food stuff, such as books, etc., etc., that can be exchanged from one hand to the other. Why do the ulama make the difference between a transferable commodity and a non-transferable commodity? The reason why they make that difference is so that you know at what time you can get possession of it. Remember we said that you should not sell anything until you have possession of it. So something that can't be transferred, obviously you can't move from its position, can you? That's why the ulama make the difference between that which can be transferred from its place, and that which can't be transferred. And so because, for example, the brother was talking about furniture, and that was so big and large, and the other brother was talking about carpets, which is so big and large, it is similar to that which cannot be transferred. Right? Because it is so large, it cannot be transferred. It has to be bought from those people that originally make it. And it has to be kept with them because they are the only ones who have such a large place. Right? So therefore, transferring that commodity to your house would not be a question. Just like, for example, if you were to buy a house, you don't have to transfer it into your house in order for, you can't transfer the house or the land that you bought in order for that to be under your possession. As long as you have had the deed in your hand, that would be considered qabd. That would be considered as if you have taken it into your possession. That's why the ulama make the difference between, that's the fa'idah, why the ulama make the difference between transferable commodity and a non-transferable commodity. The next point being the money from one party is money, and the other one a non-transferable commodity, such as a house or land. And the next type of commodity, next type of contract based on the type of commodity being sold is money from one party and a benefit or work from the other one, such as manfa'a. Okay, that would be like, for example, I'll give you money and the other person gives me a service. That's example of hiring. For example, I'll hire that person, and so I gave him money and he gives me in return a service. What's his service? He will work for me. He will type letters for me from 9 to 5, for example. The most stringent conditions of Sharia are in the first type of what we've talked about. The most stringent conditions of Sharia you will find is when there is money from both parties. Money from both parties. And the least stringent is you will find when it is money from one side and a commodity, whether it be transferable, non-transferable, etc., from the other side. We can also talk about contracts by way of hukum of the contract itself, after it has been agreed upon. Remember the first type, we were talking in the first one, we talked about the way, looking at contracts by way of the hukum of the Sharia. Now we can talk about the contracts by way of, by the hukum of the Sharia after the contract has been made. So after the contract has been made, either it is wajib on both parties, either the contract and holding onto the contract and doing everything that the contract dictates is either wajib on both parties, such as buying and selling. So when you have bought and sold, it's wajib on you to not return it back. It's haram for you to actually to say to return it back, except of course if you both agree, right? But it's wajib on you to keep both the stuff. So for example, after you bought and sold, after 10 days, the guy can't come to you and say, take it back, take your money back, give my car back. And the brother wants his car, right? He's bought the car from you. So you can't go and tell him, no, give me my car, give me the car back that I sold to you. Why? Because it's wajib on you. If he wants to, of course he can, as a goodness from him, right? As a goodness from him. However, it is not wajib on him. Rather, it becomes wajib on him to keep it. Right. I hope I've not confused people with that. Have I confused people with that?